Hey there, sinners. It's Adam Knox, and welcome to another episode of The Cult of You and our favorite, The Astrologer. I quickly popped in here in Bill's segment just to introduce two quick things. Firstly, if you're not aware as yet, if you're not following the social media pages, do so. If you just check down in the description below, you'll find our Linktree link, which is the link to all of our stuff. There you can get access to our Discord community. You can pop onto our Facebook group. These are the greatest places for updates. So if you want to know what's happening, what changes, early access stuff, all that kind of stuff, that's where you want to go to get that information. On top of that, the other thing that I want you to be aware of in conjunction with that is that this segment for the astrologer will no longer happen on the first Wednesday of every month. So it moves to the very start of the month. So on the first of every month, we will release this segment so you can get your astrology planning in for the rest of the month. I'm personally very excited about that because I found that Bill sometimes has some really good insight that happens on these critical days, and I don't want you to miss out on that, but so that you can make your planning as well. These have been very useful for me, even in my own business and in my own life, just in having a good understanding of what to kind of emotionally and psychologically prepare my for, as well as how to select my ritual work and my psychological inner work to be best aligned to those processes. And this month is the same. Again, there's so much jam-packed information for the month of May, and I'm quite happy about that because it's my birthday month. So in conjunction with it being my birthday month, I'm actually going to be doing a little thing. And that little thing that I'm doing is the release of an absolute brand new program that I've been working on called the Daemontorship Program. So that's literally mentorship meets daemon, and that's the symbolic nature of the daemon, the guy, that spiritual helper, meeting mentorship. And it's where I guide you on how to connect with that force within yourself and how to work through that. Now, it's a lot more intense. There's a lot more to it. That course has officially opened this weekend. It opened up on the 29th of April. I am limiting it because I'm only able to work with 12 people per cycle inside of that. It's just what my time allows, especially how much goes into that, because it's not just occult and magical mentorship that is personal, working with me in real time on bi-weekly sessions over Zoom, email, calls, but I'm actively working with you through those processes as well as your business, launching your company, your brand, your product. So if you're interested in that, while there's still slots available, check the link below and beneath our main link, which will be a link directly to the Daemontorship Program, where you can get access to that and work with me if that's something that you're interested in. Now, with that aside and those announcements out of the way, I want you to consider Bill's insights today with a little bit of a mythology approach. What I like to do is I like to consider, when I hear these astrological point of view, a little bit of planning for my meetings. I'm not necessarily going to change my meetings based upon that, because sometimes you just simply can't. Business and life just gets a little bit crazy. But I'm going to try and optimize my planning and my schedules for that. If I know there's a specific kind of retrograde that's going to affect my relationships with clients, I may plan that I'm doing more kind of internal or private work or working on code or whatever my pieces at that time, so I lessen those impacts and those risks. I plan my ritual work with my own goals according to those processes. In fact, I like to start my day off with daily meditations, and just to do that, to try and align myself and optimize myself towards this. Think of these also, even if you're not big on terms of the astrology stuff, but as great psychological tools. If you consider that the zodiac and the planets also dwell within us and has a correspondence in each and every one of us, these become exceptionally useful tools for what parts of yourself to be working on to be most attuned to nature. Remember, in the old magical cultures and the pagan cultures and all the old practices, there was this principal focus on the alignment and the attunement into nature to help us to optimize its forces, its powers, and its wisdom and its spirits into our own life. There's deep value in this, and working with the archetypal mind and the deeper secret psychology of the quantum and superconscious that I'm sure you will find great value in. But anyway, that's enough from me. Let's hear from Bill himself about the wisdom of the stars and what we can be prepared for the month of May. Sit back, relax, and remember to live deliciously.
Hi everyone, Bill Duvendack here with the May 2022 astrological previews. So get your drink. You might want to get pen and paper or make sure that you save this to go over later because there's a lot to cover. So cheers, here we go. Okay, so first, before we talk about May, let's talk about the ending of April. So the last few days of April brought the first significant retrograde of the year with Pluto. So now you will find that it is time to look inward for transformation, and specifically transformation that has to do with taking yourself to the next level of maturity and development, because this is happening in Capricorn. Now, you could also apply this to the professional world, meaning that you may want to consider looking within and seeing what you need to change to get better, bigger results in your professional life if you want them. But the common theme here is just evolve, internally evolve for each one of us. Now, the good news is you don't have to do this fast. Pluto is going to be retrograde for several months. So don't sweat it too much, work with it. But remember, when you have to ask yourself, is the problem out here or in here? That's really kind of irrelevant because it is your reaction to things that determines how they go or how they impact you or how they affect you. So don't sweat it too much trying to figure it out. See where you can transform. And if you look around and it's not appropriate for you to transform you to deal with the situations that you've got going on, extricate yourself from the situation. It's pretty simple. Now, that happened the last few days of April. And then we move into an eclipse, a new moon solar eclipse on April 30th in the sign of Taurus. So we start eclipse season, as astrologers enjoy calling it. So this eclipse, since it's in Taurus, has to do with new starts that have to do with the physical world that we live in. So that could be health, that could be money, that could be changes in diet and exercise. For those of you that do any gardening or planting of any kind, now is a good time to do that. They always say to plant the things that grow under the ground on a waning moon or a new moon. So keep that in mind too. You can work with it on that practical level. This would also be a good time to, I don't know, maybe treat yourself to a massage or something sensual. Taurus is a very tactile sign, so you may find that that helps relieve stress and kind of snap you out of a particular headspace if you don't want it. And check the house in your astrological chart where this is occurring, because that will be the life area that's most impacted by this eclipse. So we have this eclipse on April 30th, which starts eclipse season, and the second eclipse is at the end of the month, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Then on May 2nd, we have Venus Jupiter conjunction in Pisces at 29 degrees. And the reason that that matters is that anytime a planet is at 29 degrees of a sign, it's an ending of a cycle of development that has to do with that sign. So, since this is Pisces, expect spiritual cycles of development to come to a close, emotionally charged situations and cycles in your life to come to a close. And this isn't just a close existentially where you're wrapping your head around bringing it to closure. This could be walking away from someone or people that continually harangue you. This could be a cycle of development that does have to do with your emotions, because Pisces is a sensitive sign. And remember here, when we're talking about the sensitivity of Pisces, We're not talking about, oh my God, they'll cry at the drop of a hat if a sappy scene in a movie comes on. That's not what sensitive mean when it comes to Pisces. Take it from this Pisces. Sensitive means being able to perceive things others can't. So, in context of these 29 degrees, what this means is you might get a sudden epiphany on what needs to change, and everybody else around you thinks you're batshit crazy until a month or two down the road, and then they discover you were right. The sensitivity we're talking about here is your ability to sense energy. Anyone who has strong Pisces in their chart can sense energy better than any other sign. That's a long established astrological fact. Now, the water signs in general are more intuitive, but Pisces is the most sensitive. So, sorry, other 11 signs. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to be a Pisces to have this gift. You could have your moon in Pisces rather than your sun. Or you might be an Aries sun and several planets are in Pisces. Or you could be an Aquarius sun with several planets in Pisces. Because of the rate of speed of the planets, it's not confined to one sun sign. So when I'm talking about this, I do encourage you to look up in an ephemeris, either online or in book form, and see how much of your chart is in Pisces before you take these steps forward. So, in some ways, the planets at 29 degrees on the second could also be saying, maybe you're too sensitive. And yeah, that's a hard one. The reason it's hard is because many people, and I'm sure many of you listening to this, spend time developing those intuitive and psychic skills. And now I'm telling you, you might want to back off. It's a bitter pill to swallow. Now, the thinking behind this is simply that sometimes you have to put aside your sensitivity work or your intuitive work in order to get physical things done and focus on other areas of your life. So it's not like a full stop. It's more like a temporary pause, put things on hold to address other areas and then come back and pick up your studies where you left off. After all, remember, everything in moderation, including moderation, but that's a story for another time. On the 3rd, we have Venus moving into Aries. Generally, this is considered a weak placement in astrology, but the real essence here is instant gratification. So, if you find that you have a longing for instant gratification or your patience is wearing thin with regards to emotionally charged situations, this is the influence that's bringing that to the forefront of your consciousness. Now, it also means keep your eyes open for opportunities to make some money or express your creativity. But the thing is, you cannot put off deciding whether or not to seize those opportunities for too long because you will find that they're gone. Aries is very fast moving energy, it's cardinal fire. Here today, gone tomorrow. Or as Bugs Bunny used to say, hair today and gone tomorrow. So as the opportunities come up in the early part of May, be on point. If you're interested in them, as they teach you in the professional world, if you don't know whether or not you can do it, you go ahead and say yes and figure out how to do it on the back end. We got a few days lull of silence there until May 8th, when we have the moon in Leo squaring the sun and Uranus in Taurus. This could be a particularly challenging few days, the 8th through the 10th or so, because this square highlights ego conflicts. The moon in ego, the moon in ego? Well, some would say that. But the moon in Leo is all about creativity, but it's also all about hubris, arrogance, and pride. So, on one hand, if you've got a fire moon, you may be hitting a streak of good luck here. But the square to the sun and Uranus in Taurus tells us that while it might be emotionally gratifying, it might come along fast and you get a lot of positive things out of it. Expect the unexpected. it might be taken away from you just as quick. Now, another part of this message is be careful with conflicts online. The moon in Leo, of course, self aggrandizement, creative self expression, romance. But don't forget, Uranus corresponds to the World Wide Web. So when you connect the dots here, the moon in Leo squaring the sun and Uranus in Taurus tells us your ego might blind you to things online. Or your ego may cause issues on the internet. And it's not necessarily a punishment, but rather it's two conflicting headstrong perspectives. This also means, though, on those few days, the 8th, 9th, and 10th, watch out for food poisoning. Taurus corresponds to the food. It corresponds to living life and having good things. It, along with Cancer, are the two signs that most have to do with food. So you may find that with this moon square Sun Uranus conjunction, you eat something that's emotionally satisfying and then it doesn't agree with you later. Or you're in a hurry to eat, so you don't check the expiration date on the food and it comes back to bite you in the ass. So there's a few different ways that can play out. Also on that day, May 8th, we have Jupiter at the last degree of Pisces. And on May 11th, Jupiter enters into Aries. So, of course, Jupiter in Pisces is all about spiritual growth and maturity. Jupiter in Pisces is all about going with the flow. It's all about the development of the psyche and the development of the mind and unforeseen blessings manifesting. So any or all of those traits could be coming to a close on the 8th. But here's the thing. When Jupiter moves into Aries, it's going from the best placement that it can have in Pisces into a fire sign, so water to fire. And at first glance, that may seem like a very challenging thing or a very bad thing, but Jupiter moving into Aries is actually positive. Jupiter is the ruling planet of Sagittarius as much as it is Pisces. Sagittarius is a fire sign. So when you have Jupiter moving into a sign of an element of another sign that it rules, it's considered a strong placement. So for those of you that have strong Sagittarius in your charts, you might find that things start moving quick. About the 11th or so, things that were stagnant or stuck because they were flowing too easily through Pisces now get a fixed direction and full speed ahead. If you're a water sign, yeah, this does mean that there's not going to be as much emphasis on spirituality, creativity, divine love, divine intervention. Yeah, all that might be dissipating. So what this means is that between now, the time that you watch it, and May 11th, if you're a water sign and Jupiter at the 29th degree of Pisces is impacting your chart in some way, it's time to wrap up the projects. And that's really about it. Now, on the 9th, guess what? Mercury. You got it. Mercury in Gemini on the 9th begins to station retrograde. So we have the first Mercury retrograde of the year, and it's going to be retrograde until June 4th when it ends the retrograde period in Taurus. So first of all, Mercury is the ruling planet of Gemini. So this retrograde is going to hit harder or be at least more dynamic than other Mercury retrogrades have been. If you're a Gemini or a Virgo, this one's going to hit you pretty hard. If you're a Sagittarius or a Pisces, or have strong in your chart, I hope I can just quit saying or have strong in your chart. I think everybody here knows that when I say Sagittarius, Gemini, Virgo, Pisces, all that, I'm talking to the bulk of it in your chart and not necessarily your sun sign. All of those signs are going to get hit hard by this. So Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo, and Pisces are all going to get hit hard during this Mercury retrograde until Mercury backs into Taurus. So basically, you'll have a month of an intense Mercury retrograde. So first of all, if you know your astrological chart, see what astrological house this is occurring in. That is the life area that needs the most review. That's the life area that needs the most changes. And that's the life area that's going to be the litmus test. Now, this retrograde also tells us that for the rest of the year, the rest of the Mercury retrogrades are going to be in air signs, backing up into earth signs. So for the next Mercury retrograde, which will be in Libra later this year, yeah, that sounds good. Fuck it. I mean, air signs, right? I'm just playing. Yeah, when Mercury goes retrograde in Libra later this year, that means Libras, Cancers, Aries, and Capricorns are all going to get hit hard by it. And then the following retrograde, which will be end of this year, bleeding into 2023, it will be in Aquarius. And that one is going to impact the charts of those who have strong Taurus, Aquarius, Leo, and Scorpio in their charts. So you can see that by the time this astrological year ends, pretty much every sign is going to be affected by the Mercury retrogrades for this coming year. Now, the Mercury retrogrades, because they're in air signs, they are going to be cerebral situations to deal with, personal communication, electronics, manual dexterity, pretty much anything like that is what's going to be hit the hardest. So in that way, this year is a year of what I like to call classic Mercury retrogrades, where you can read a book on Mercury retrogrades and is probably going to be more accurate than not. Few days of silence or solace until May 12th, when the moon in Libra opposes Venus and Jupiter in Aries. So this will be short-lived, but on that day, the 11th, the 12th, the 13th, depending on where you're at in the planet, watch your emotional state creating tension with the traits and properties of Venus and Jupiter, which we talked about earlier. Now, I say the 11th, 12th, and 13th, but it's going to be a subtle shift. The 11th and 12th is when this dynamic is going to be the strongest. And then in the 13th, the moon shifts a little bit to oppose Chiron. So there might be some emotional triggering going on there. The 14th is nice and quiet. The 15th, we have the moon in Scorpio opposing the sun, Uranus, and the north node of the moon in Taurus. So here again, a couple of days might be tense, but a lot of that will have to do with testing your discipline, testing your drive, and testing your focus. The 16th, the moon in Sagittarius trines Jupiter in Aries. It's a good time to get the let out and get things done. And that continues for the 17th, when the moon in Sagittarius trines Venus and Chiron in Aries. So those few days are going to be a good time for healing, especially when it comes to a sense of being, a sense of self, ego issues, anything like that. And then on the 18th, that is followed up with the moon in Capricorn squaring Jupiter in Aries. So the moon in Capricorn squaring Jupiter in Aries is basically saying, be careful your stubbornness doesn't get in the way of your opportunities for expansion in your life. Another way that you could look at this is that Aries is the pioneering energy. Capricorn, in a lot of ways, is very fixed because it likes the steady state. And the reason this matters is because if you prefer the steady state, and you say no to a fast-moving opportunity that comes your way, you probably self-sabotage because you were stubborn or because you don't want the thrill and the chaos that goes with change. whether the change is good or bad. So it could be your own damn fault you miss it, especially if you have strong Capricorn in your chart. So go with the flow when possible and appropriate. On the 20th, we have the moon making a lot of action. We have the moon in Aquarius conjunct Pluto in Capricorn. So watch out for explosiveness. Watch out for potential for accidents. That same moon is sextiling Jupiter in Aries. So on those few days, the 19th, 20th, and 21st, you may find it wise to watch your temper, but grab the possibilities and the opportunities when they come up. Then on the 21st, we have the sun moving into Gemini, and we have the Mercury retrograde in Gemini conjuncting the sun. So that bubble right there, the 19th through the 22nd, the 19th through the 23rd or so, is going to be tumultuous, but a lot of it is going to have to do with patience, diligence, but not being so focused on patience and structure and change that you fail to grab opportunities that come your way. So that's a little tricky to deal with. It's going to take some navigation psychologically to get through, but once you're through it, everything will be fine. This may also highlight a lot of situations in the overall scheme of your life that need brought to an ending or readdressed, and those will be highlighted by the Mercury retrograde on those times. Also on the 22nd, we have Jupiter in Aries sextiling the Sun and the Mercury retrograde in Gemini. So you can see that on the heels of that shakeup that I was just describing, this may be the rainbow after the storm, or this might be the light at the end of the tunnel. So if you don't self-sabotage over those few days, later in the 22nd or even into the 23rd, you might find some good stuff comes your way. Now, the 24th brings some more motion with Saturn in Aquarius squaring the Mercury retrograde now in Taurus. So again, watch for big scale changes in your life to be highlighted to you that you need to address. And then on the 25th, Mars moves into Aries. So this also means Mars is at the final degree of Pisces when Saturn is squaring the Mercury retrograde. The reason this matters is that when May 25th comes along and Mars moves into Aries, in a lot of ways it shifts the overall dynamic of what's happening in the zodiac right now, and everything is shifting to Aries dominant, whereas it's been mostly Pisces dominant for half of April and the early half of May. So even though the sun will be in Gemini at this time, Gemini's, I don't want to say going to be a non-factor, but its impact is going to be downplayed, and anybody with strong Aries in their chart may feel at home. To me, that's a good thing. I love a lot of Aries energy. It's all about being the pioneer. It's all about moving forward. It's all about go, see, do, make things happen. Be proactive, not reactive. The only thing to be careful of here, of course, is stubbornness and hubris. But I like it because in a lot of ways, it's saying now is the time, the 25th-ish, to set your plans so that when Mercury directs, you're out the gate running. Few days of silence until May 28th when Venus moves into Taurus. Venus is the ruling planet of Taurus, so her arrival there is going to be positive, especially if you're an earth sign or you have dominant earth in your chart. But for Scorpios, Leos, and Aquarians, this might put stress or tension on money or love or even being able to tap in your own creativity. Now on that day, we also have Mars and Jupiter conjunct in Aries. So it's a good time to tap into your own inner warrior energy, whether it's your own desire to stand up for what's right, or perhaps it is the I've had enough of this shit and I'm not going to take it anymore attitude, that's fine too. And if you want clarification on that, 2 days later, on May 30th, we have the new moon lunar eclipse in Gemini. So basically, you get your thoughts together the 28th, the 29th, and then you could do something meaningful on the 30th with that new moon to fire it off for the next few months. Now, we end May with an eclipse. We started May with an eclipse. Every time there is an eclipse, the energy astrologically is distorted. So what this means is that the whole month of May could have a very surreal feel to it. It could feel very distorted. It might feel like you're going down the rabbit hole and a lot of things are moving in a lot of strange and different ways. And that's probably true. It's probably what's happening for you. But keep it into context. Here's why I say that. I see a lot of bullshit on social media and online where people say, I sense a shift. We must be evolving to the 5th, 12th, 232nd dimension. And oh my God, this is fabulous. No. That's not what is happening. The distortions that I'm talking about in May are internal. They have to do with your perception of time, your perception of energy, what you think is best in your life, what you think could use some improvement in your life. So the distortions have to do with your consciousness. It doesn't have to do with all of us ascending to a new state of being. You want to know how I know? What state of being could we be ascending to? A new level of consciousness, that happened in 2012. And since we're coming up on the 10-year anniversary of the 2012 incident, for lack of a better word, we can see that there's been a dynamic shift in consciousness from 2012. There have been a lot of lesser ones in that decade, but we can trace it back to that particular point. And the reason that this matters is that if we're talking about a shift in consciousness of the species to a new or higher level, it has to be something as dramatic as that alignment in 2012. And the aspects that I'm talking about with these two pedestrian eclipses don't have that kind of oomph. I'm sorry, they just don't. Now, I'm humble enough to say I could be wrong, and we won't know it till the end of May. There could be some major galactic thing that happens during May that I'm missing, or us collectively pour the energy of our consciousness into making happen. That's entirely possible. This is a free will zone. But just be a little guarded, just be a little cynical if you see people talking about feeling distortions or feels like things are changing like that. It's not. It's internal what's happening. I got a real good lesson of this a number of years ago when I made some innocuous post on my Facebook page saying, oh, I feel a shift coming on. And I was talking about my own life because I was looking at what was in my chart, and somebody immediately commented under that post, I knew there was a shift going on. I felt it in the sky. When what I was referring to had nothing to do with the overall astrological vibe. It had to do with me personally in my chart. It's easy for people to miss the point on things because generally people talk to be heard. They don't talk to communicate. And as you can see with this big shift from the beginning of May, from Pisces all the way to the end of May, when it becomes more Aries dominant and Gemini focused, we are moving away from the spiritual and into the communicative as far as the influences in the cosmos go. So in other words, once the Mercury retrograde's done in early May or in early June, it's time for the rubber to meet the road. It's no more meditating at home waiting for the COVID restrictions to be done. No, it's getting out and talking to people, making things happen, recognizing your own personal power. And May 2022 is the transition into that. Anyway, I hope all of this makes sense. There is a lot going on, but as you have learned by watching these videos so many times, on any given month, there is something going on. And when we put this into context of other months, we see, other than the Mercury retrograde, it's just an average month. So have fun. Enjoy the eclipses. Eclipses tend to distort things with all those planets changing signs. Twinkle toes, dance a little. But whatever you do, remember, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will. Execute your will, do it in a loving way. And if people challenge you on love, it's time for a deeper discussion, because somebody's wrong, and all of us know that there's three sides to every story, so you can't assume the other person's wrong. You can't assume you're wrong. The truth lies in the middle. So you're both probably wrong, or everybody involved, and you're all probably right too. And sifting through the minutiae is where the power can be found, and that power is the power of divine love and healing. So, until we chat again, may we all receive blessings of good health, prosperity, and success as we move forward in the next week of our lives. Smib.